South Africa's most industrialized economy has been reeling from the impact of unprecedented rainfall and the devastating floods, especially in the port city of Durban and KwaZulu-Natal province. More than 300 lives have been lost to the ecological disaster, and that is rapidly turning into a humanitarian concern, owing to the difficulties being experienced by those seeking to provide relief, and that's according to the following report.
Victims of South Africa's deadliest storm on record scrambled to get help on Thursday as the death toll from floods and landslips that struck the country's southeast surged beyond 300. At least 306 people have been killed since the heaviest rainfall in 6 decades swept away homes and destroyed infrastructure in the city of Durban and KwaZulu-Natal province. The government has declared a state of disaster in the region and pledged relief to those affected. President Cyril Ramaphosa, in a visit to the area on Wednesday, described the flood as a calamity, a catastrophe of enormous proportions. Thousands of people have been made homeless, roads and bridges swept away, and at least 248 schools have been damaged. The government of KwaZulu-Natal has put out a public call for aid, urging people to donate non-perishable food, bottled water, clothes and blankets. The authorities are assessing all affected families for their needs, he said in a statement. But many survivors said they had been left to fend for themselves. In Amaoti, a township north of Durban, residents balanced precariously on the edge of a broken road, trying to fetch clean water from a broken pipe underneath. Volunteers said they were desperate to find food, clothes, and other essentials. In a pitch-dark hall in Durban's Gleblands Hostel district, volunteers used their torches from their cell phones to register scores of displaced people overnight. Many victims slept on chairs or on cardboard on the floors of the hall. Weather experts say apocalyptic levels of rain were dumped over the region over several days in South Africa's biggest storm on record. Some areas received more than 450 millimeters, about 18 inches in 48 hours, amounting to nearly half of Durban's annual rainfall of 1,009 millimeters, the National Weather Service said. The storm caught South African authorities unprepared. Africa's most industrialized country had been largely shielded from tropical storms that form over the Indian Ocean and typically batter Mozambique when they make landfall. The latest rains were caused by a weather system called cut-off low that brought rain and cold weather to much of the country.
Chairman of Impact Investment Africa, Chris Hart, joins us now to assess the likely economic and social impact of this disturbing development in South Africa. Thanks so much for joining us on Newsday. Now, we're hearing reports that South Africa has halted shipping at its main port in Durban. What is the economic implication of this?
Well, Durban is the biggest port serving the Southern African region, and it's the most important port infrastructure that there is. In Africa, it's only really on the North African coast that you've got some infrastructure that rivals that, and the closure of that means that from a logistics point of view, there's going to be a shortage of goods that's going to develop, certainly inland as the import pipeline is constricted. The problem that this comes, and we saw this, and I had personal experience of it. I spent the whole of the last weekend in the province where it was really raining very, very steadily and persistently. That the damage is absolutely huge. Besides the loss of life, it's the actual economic impact that comes on the back of the riots, which were held mainly in KwaZulu-Natal. That's where the main or nexus of damage actually occurred. For the province to receive a second big blow, right in the space of literally half a year, is quite a blow. When one talks about the economic centres, there's 3 economic centres in South Africa. One centres around Durban, the other centres around Cape Town, and the biggest one is of course around Johannesburg. But the Durban-Johannesburg link is a very important one because it's the transport logistics hub and lifeline between the two major economic centres. This is going to be quite a big setback for the KwaZulu-Natal economy. That economy really is struggling with problems of unemployment already. It's one of the highest unemployment countries or provinces, struggling with deep-seated poverty in the rural areas in particular. And this is where the capability and capacity, the reserves and resilience is least, and that's where it's been hit hardest, because it's not just then the loss of life, it's the ability to actually get relief supplies, food, clean water, etc., to sometimes very remote areas where infrastructure is tenuous at best, and the infrastructure now has been actually quite severely damaged as a result. The riots saw, you could say, the damage of the retail infrastructure, but the actual roads, etc., was still okay. Now we're seeing the damage of the infrastructure, which of course is a double blow, and I think will require concerted effort in relief and following these floods.
As the infrastructure has clearly been devastated, I mean, we're looking at these images and it's quite heartbreaking. The government is yet to declare this a disaster, which would open up a large amount of funds for the relief efforts. Do you think that this is something that can be done effectively by the government, or will it take a long time before this province is able to get back up on its feet?
The riots showed how quickly things can turn around. The province bounced back very strongly after the riots, but that wasn't government-led, it was private sector driven. South Africa is fortunate in terms of its private sector that has got a number of, you could say, large corporates that have got capability and capacity, and that they really, shouldered that and got the province back to functioning again. When it comes to the infrastructure, that can actually be slowed down by government. When you start looking at the need for tenders and various other procedural issues that can actually slow these problems down. So it would help, for instance, if there was a state of disaster declared. It would be very peculiar to have South Africa under state of disaster because of COVID, which and not have one, for this particular emergency at this stage would seem peculiarly ironic as well. There is certainly a need of urgent intervention in KwaZulu-Natal at this moment in time.
Well, Chairman of Impact Investment Africa, Chris Hart, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday, and thank you for your analysis.